Cyber Threat Brief for May 8, 2026. Ivanti ships its third EPM 0-day patch of 2026, CVE 2026-6973, active exploitation confirmed. Palo Alto Networks warns of month-long state-sponsored firewall attacks, CVE 2026-0300, patches May 13. And a new Linux kernel 0-day, called Dirty Frag, grants instant root on all major distributions with no patch available. Here's the full breakdown of today's top security stories. Daily Security Brief 2026-058. Next section, Critical Alerts. Ivanti EPM 0-day, CVE 2026-6973. Ivanti disclosed another actively exploited 0-day in Endpoint Manager Mobile EPM. The third EPM 0-day in 2026, CVE 2026-6973, is a high-severity remote code execution flaw, CVSS, the Common Vulnerability Scoring System, 7.2, that allows authenticated attackers with administrative privileges to execute arbitrary code. CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, added it to the KEV, known Exploited Vulnerabilities catalog with a May 10 remediation deadline. Ivanti confirmed very limited exploitation in the wild. The vulnerability requires admin access to exploit, which is why customers who rotated EPM credentials after January's and 0 days are at significantly reduced risk. Evidence suggests was chained with the earlier vulnerabilities to maintain persistence after initial compromise. Shadows over tracks over 850 EPM instances exposed online, concentrated in Europe, 508, and North America, 182. This is Ivanti's 34th KEV entry since 2021, with 22 exploited flaws in the past 2 years alone, and 3 additional CVEs. See show notes for the full list. Action: patch to EPM 12.6.1.1 or immediately. Review admin accounts and rotate credentials. If you were compromised in January, assume persistence and hunt for follow-on activity. This vulnerability only affects on-prem EPM, not Ivanti neurons for MDM or other products, and 2 additional IP addresses in the show notes. Sources: Cyberscoop Bleeping Computer, The Hacker News, Security Week, CISA. Palo Alto Networks Firewall 0-day, CVE 2026-0300. Palo Alto Networks confirmed that suspected state-sponsored hackers exploited a critical PANOS firewall 0-day for nearly a month before disclosure. CVE 2026-0300 is a buffer overflow in the PANOS user ID authentication portal that allows unauthenticated remote code execution with root privileges on Internet-exposed PS series and VM series firewalls. The first unsuccessful exploitation attempts began April 9, followed by successful remote code execution and shellcode injection on April 16. Attackers deployed Earthworm and Reverse SOX 5 tunneling tools, conducted Active Directory enumeration using firewall service account credentials, and performed extensive log cleanup to evade detection. Unit 42 tracks the campaign as CLSDA 1132, a likely state-sponsored cluster with operational tradecraft matching Chinese APT, Advanced Persistent Threat, Groups Volt Typhoon, APT41. Shadows over tracks over 5,400 exposed PANOS firewalls, concentrated in Asia, 2,466, and North America, 1,998. CIS added CVE 2026-0300 to the KEV catalog with a May 9 deadline. Patches are expected May 13 and May 28. Action: immediately restrict PANOS user ID authentication portal access to trusted internal zones only. If you cannot restrict access, disable the portal entirely. Check configuration at Device User Identification Authentication Portal Settings. CISA's May 9 deadline is Saturday midnight. Cloud NGFW and Panorama are not affected. Sources: Bleeping Computer Security Week. Linux Dirty Frag 0-day, no CVE, or common vulnerabilities and exposures. Assigned: a new Linux kernel privilege escalation vulnerability called Dirty Frag allows local attackers to gain root privileges on all major distributions with a single command. Security researcher Hyunwoo Kim disclosed the flaw after an embargo breach when an unrelated third party published the exploit publicly. Dirty Frag chains 2 kernel vulnerabilities, XFRMESB page cache write and RxRPC page cache write, to modify protected system files in memory and escalate to root. The vulnerabilities were introduced in January 2017 XFRMESB and June 2023 RxRPC. Dirty Frag belongs to the same vulnerability class as Dirty Pipe and Copyfail. CVE 2026-31431, added to CIS a KEV last week with active exploitation. The exploit has a very high success rate because it relies on deterministic logic bugs with no race conditions required. Working proof of concept code is publicly available. Affected distributions include Ubuntu, RHEL, CentOS Stream, Alma Linux, OpenSUSE, and Fedora. No CVE identifier has been assigned, and no patches are available yet. Action: block the vulnerable kernel modules immediately. Sudo shc print install esp4/bin/false /install esp6/bin/false /install rxrpc/bin/false/n/editor/modprobe d/dirfrag conf rmmod esp4 esp6 rxrpc2/dev/null true. This will break ISEC VPNs and AFS distributed file systems. Monitor for patches from your distribution maintainer. Given the public proof of concept and high success rate, treat this as an immediate priority for any internet-facing Linux systems. Sources: Bleeping Computer, The Hacker News, Sans ISC. Next section, Ivanti EPM Additional Vulnerabilities. Ivanti patched 4 additional high-severity EPM vulnerabilities alongside CVE 2026-6973 with no evidence of in-the-wild exploitation. CVSS 8.8 is an improper access control flaw, allowing authenticated attackers to gain admin access. CVSS 8.9 is an improper certificate validation vulnerability that allows unauthenticated attackers to impersonate registered Sentry hosts and obtain valid CA-signed client certificates. CVSS 7.0 allows unauthenticated attackers to invoke arbitrary methods. CVSS 7.4 is a certificate validation flaw that allows unauthenticated attackers to enroll devices and disclose EPM appliance information, but only affects customers using Apple device enrollment, and 4 additional CVEs. See show notes for the full list. Action: all 4 vulnerabilities are fixed in the same patches, addressing CVE 2026-6973, versions 12.6.1.1, and apply patches immediately even though no active exploitation has been reported, and 2 additional IP addresses in the show notes. Sources: Bleeping Computer, The Hacker News. Next section, Ransomware and Extortion. Ransom House claims Trellix breach. Ransom House Ransomware Group claimed responsibility for the recent attack on cybersecurity firm Trellix. The company confirmed this week that part of its source code repository was breached, but stated that it found no evidence that the source code release or distribution process was affected or that the code has been exploited. Ransom House published screenshots on its leak site showing access to internal services and management dashboards, but has not specified how much data was stolen or what type of data is involved. The timing of the attack suggests a potential connection to the recent supply chain campaign linked to Team PCP and Lapsus Dollar that has impacted Checkmarx, Aqua Security, and Bitwarden, though this connection has not been confirmed. Ransom House emerged in 2022 and operates as a RAS provider targeting large enterprises. The group's leak site currently lists more than 170 victims. Sources: Security Week. Next section, Business and Infrastructure Threats. TCL Banker malware spreads via WhatsApp and Outlook. A new banking Trojan named TCL Banker targets 59 banking, fintech, and cryptocurrency platforms using a Trojanized Logitech AI prompt builder MSI installer. Malware includes self-spreading worm modules for WhatsApp and Outlook that automatically infect new victims. TCL Banker is a major evolution of the Maverick/Sorvapodal malware family and currently focuses on Brazil, though LATAM malware has historically expanded targeting scope. The malware uses DLL, Dynamic Link Library, side-loading within a legitimate Logitech application to evade detection and includes heavy anti-analysis protections, environment-dependent decryption, watchdog threads hunting for analysis tools. It monitors browser address bars for 59 targeted platforms and establishes WebSocket command and control sessions for remote control when victims access them. Capabilities include live screen streaming, keylogging, clipboard hijacking, shell execution, and fake overlay systems, credential prompts, PIN keypads, fake Windows update screens. The WhatsApp worm searches for authenticated WhatsApp web sessions in Chromium browser profiles, hijacks the victim's account, harvests Brazilian contacts, and sends spam messages. The Outlook worm uses COM automation to harvest contacts and send phishing emails. Action: block execution of the compromised Logitech AI prompt builder installer. Monitor for connections to WebSocket C2 infrastructure. Hunt for Earthworm and Reverse SOX 5 network tunneling tools. Watch for automated WhatsApp and Outlook activity from internal accounts. Sources: Bleeping Computer. Next section, Windows/Active Directory Security. Microsoft expands passkey support. Microsoft announced expanded passkey support across its ecosystem on World Passkey Day. The The company eliminated weaker authentication methods and rolled out phishing-resistant authentication, covering 99.6% of users and devices in its internal environment. Key updates include synced passkeys and passkey profiles in Microsoft Entra ID, Entra passkeys on Windows using Windows Hello, GA late May 2026, passkeys for Microsoft Entra External ID, GA late May 2026, and passkey-preferred authentication in Entra ID Preview. Microsoft Password Manager now saves and syncs passkeys across devices signed in with Microsoft accounts, with iOS and Android support rolling out soon. FIDO Alliance estimates 5 billion passkeys are already in use worldwide. Sign-in success rates with passkeys are significantly higher than with passwords, and exposure to credential-based attacks is significantly lower. AI-powered phishing campaigns drive click-through rates as high as 54%. Sources: Microsoft Security Blog. AI Agent Framework, RCE Vulnerabilities. Microsoft disclosed 2 critical vulnerabilities in its semantic kernel AI Agent Framework that could turn prompt injection into host-level remote code execution. CVE 2026-25592 and have been fixed. The vulnerabilities allowed attackers with prompt injection vectors to achieve unauthorized code execution by influencing agent inputs. Exploitation of required the targeted agent to use the search plugin backed by in-memory vector store functionality with default configuration. The research demonstrates that AI agents fundamentally change the threat model of AI applications because plugins grant agents the ability to read files, search databases, run scripts, and perform other active operations. When frameworks map AI model outputs to system tools without proper validation, prompt injection becomes a code execution primitive. Microsoft is launching a research series focused on identifying vulnerabilities in popular AI agent frameworks through responsible disclosure, and 2 additional CVEs. See show notes for the full list. Action: update semantic kernel to the latest patched version. Review all AI agent deployments for prompt injection attack surface. Harden tool schemas and validate all parameters passed from AI models to system functions. Assess whether agents have excessive permissions or access to sensitive systems. Sources: Microsoft Security Blog. Next section, General Security News. Android ADB Authentication Bypass, CVE 2026-0073. Google patched a critical Android vulnerability that allows attackers to bypass authentication in the Android Debug Bridge, a DB, remote debugging service. CVE 2026-0073 is a logic error in the ADB authentication process that occurs when key types don't match. For example, private key is RSA and public key is ED 25519. The ADB service returns an error, but still opens a remote Android shell. The bug only works if ADB was used at least once, so there's an initial private key on the host to compare against. Exploitation works over private networks and the internet. The vulnerability impacts all devices running Android 11 or later, every Android version since September 2020. ADB is disabled by default in the standard Android OS release, but may be enabled and left exposed by OEM during factory testing. Countless botnets have grown to massive sizes by exploiting Android devices with ADB ports left exposed over the internet. This bug will likely lead to a surge in attacks from existing botnets and integration into targeted attacks and law enforcement device unlocking toolkits. The demonstrated primitive provides remote code execution as the Android shell user in SE Linux Context U, R shell, S0, which is the operating system's debugging interface. Action: apply Google's May 2026 Android Security Bulletin patches immediately. Audit all Android devices to ensure ADB is disabled unless actively required for development. If ADB must be enabled, restrict access to trusted networks only and never expose it to the internet. Sources: Risky Biz News. Next section, Patch Priority. Ivanti EPMM, Critical RCE 0-Day, CVE 2026-6973, plus 4 high-severity flaws, active exploitation confirmed, patched to 12.6. 1. 1/12.7.0.1/12.8.0.1 by May 10, CIS a KEV deadline. Palo Alto PAN-OS, Critical Firewall RCE 0-Day, CVE 2026-0300, month-long state-sponsored exploitation, restrict portal access or disable immediately, patches May 13. Linux kernel, Dirty Frag LPE 0-Day with public post C, instant root on all major distros, block ESP4/ESP6/RxRPC modules until patches available. Android, Critical ADB Authentication Bypass, CVE 2026-0073, all Android 11 Plus devices affected, Google May Security Bulletin. Microsoft Semantic Kernel, AI Agent RCE Vulnerabilities, CVE 2026-25592, CVE 2026-26030. Update to latest patched version. Next section, Vulnerability Disclosures. Microsoft May 2026 Security Updates. Microsoft published May 2026 security updates, addressing multiple vulnerabilities across Azure and Microsoft 365 products. CVE 2026-33109 is a remote code execution vulnerability in Azure Managed Instance for Apache Cassandra caused by improper access control. Is a spoofing vulnerability in Microsoft Enterprise Security Token Service (ESTS) in Azure Entra ID caused by exposure of sensitive information to unauthorized actors. Is an information disclosure vulnerability in M365 Copilot caused by improper neutralization of special elements in output injection. Multiple RDS vulnerabilities affecting Microsoft's RDS server implementation include restore invalid memory access, allowing RCE, and Lua use after free, allowing RCE. Chromium-based edge patches include script injection in UI, inappropriate implementation in MHTML, insufficient policy enforcement in web app, side channel information leakage in media, use after free in WebRTC, insufficient validation in FedCM, out-of-bounds read and add filter, type confusion in WebRTC, uninitialized use in webcodecs, and integer overflow in DAWN, and 14 additional CVEs. See show notes for the full list. Action. Apply May 2026 security updates for all Microsoft products in your environment. Prioritize Azure Managed Instance for Apache Cassandra, CVE 2026-33109 RCE, Entra ID spoofing, and M365 Copilot information disclosure, and 2 additional CVEs. See show notes for the full list. Sources: MSRC Security Update Guide. Next section, Trends and Context. 3 major zero days dominate today's threat landscape, all with active exploitation confirmed. Ivanti's third EPMM 0 day this year underscores the vendor's persistent security challenges, 34 KEV entries since 2021. Palo Alto's month-long compromise window before disclosure highlights the extended dwell time state-sponsored actors achieve against edge network devices with limited logging. The Dirty Frag Linux kernel vulnerability with public POC and no available patches presents immediate risk to all Linux environments, particularly given the high success rate and trivial exploitation. That concludes today's cyber threat brief. From Carolina, Clear Tech. Stay patched, stay vigilant.